You can now follow me on all my social media platforms to find out who my latest guest will be. And don't forget to click the subscribe button and the notifications button so you're notified for when my next podcast goes live. She wrote a letter to, is it Paul Burrells in 96 and says that they were going to kill her in a car accident. Was she ever in fear of her life? Did you ever feel that vibe?
Yeah, she was. Everywhere you go, you're trying to make it as sterile as possible because there was massive threats against the family and him. He brought down the government with the Cash for Questions carry on, which I was involved with. People who were watching you, and we did find people watching us, doing surveillance on us from MI5, which was standard, and others. What you're hoping is they're going to look at your level of security and they're going to go, it's too, we can't get away with this, it's too much. You know, you've just got to see through all the bullshit, man. This is fucking insane. This is going to get everybody killed, and I'm not sending my men in there. Some of the iconic pictures you see of the princess, there was one of me and her in a boat where she's whispering to me. That made it all over the world. Some of them sold for €1 million. So you can see why they were so aggressive to get in and get in your face and try and take a compromising photo. And the question is, why did everybody love her? Because people could see what she was like. And the media, especially the media in the UK, the tabloids then, just destroyed her. So I said to the princess, I said, have you seen the daily papers today? Because I wanted to just give her the heads up as to what was in. And she said, are you meaning that article in that paper? And I said, yeah. Like, are you okay with it? And she said, well, it's his choice. And she turned around, she'd obviously been crying and a lot. And she said, have you heard about my friend? And I said, yes, yeah, we have, it's awful what's happened, and, I know you knew him and I'm really sorry. And she was crying and she said, do you think they're going to do that to me? Because Mr. Fayed, one of his big rules was everybody must wear a seatbelt. He was really big on it. And you can see on the pictures he wasn't staggering drunk, but he was made out to be pissed out of his head. And Trevor said to me, and Kez has said to me as well, he was not drunk. We would not allow him to drive.
Yeah, there was rumours that she was pregnant. Is there any?
How can I say?
Boom, we're on. And today's guest, we've got Lee Sansom.
Great to meet you, brother.
How are you, big man?
I'm good. Are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. First of all, thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. You just released a book called The Bodyguard. Great read, close protection. Like, you've worked with some of the biggest names on the planet, but none other than Princess Diana.
Yes,
The biggest name probably on the planet.
Yeah.
You got to have deep personal conversations with her. Your own opinion of the night of the crash. Like, very fascinating read. Like,
yeah.
I get a lot of books and a lot of guests, but that one I read in 2 days.
Wow.
Very intriguing. It's always something I've always remembered. Now, we're 25th anniversary just passed a couple of days ago.
I know.
But as a kid, that's always something that's always stood out, and there's a lot of speculation, a lot of conspiracy theories, but you're the man in the mix.
Yeah.
But how are you?
I'm good. Busy, as always, like you. Dashing about all over the show, but yeah. Everything's good and everything's good.
Before we get into everything, I always go back to the start of my guests, where you grew up and how it all began.
Okay, right. So, the book I wrote with my ghostwriter as a legacy, really, for my kids during lockdown. And there are some things about the princess in there, but she's the big news, right? Everybody, especially the 25th anniversary. So I was born in Lancashire, just north of Manchester, and lived, most of my years there. We moved back into a place called Salford in Manchester, which is slightly different than it is today. Big working class area, and mainly around the dock area, and my dad used to work there, and my family are all from Manchester. And so my parents moved out to a place called Rosendale in Lancashire, and they'd both been there during the war. When they moved the children out, So they moved back there. They must have had really good memories of it, you know. So, born on a big council estate. What do you call it in Scotland? A scheme.
Yeah.
Massive scheme. Thousands of people. Full employment then in the cotton mills. And it was a great place to grow up, you know. Loads of pubs, big community feeling as you get. And then there's the pecking order, of course, isn't there, as a young man on the schemes or on the council estate. So you quickly established your pecking order as a young man, and then your little gangs that you hang out with would have their pecking order as well. So I think that growing up in that environment affects everybody slightly differently, doesn't it? So for me, as a child, I think I was, you know, when you look back, I was quite thoughtful and perhaps a bit too thoughtful on things, you know. And I was bullied at school quite badly, not in terms of you know, horrendous acts of violence against me. There's a few, but I think I overthought it, as you can do, you know, and that played a big part in my life. That on my paper, I'm dreading going to school, dreading meeting this person. You know, it affected my life incredibly. So I can really relate to people who've been bullied at school. You know, for me, it's more psychological. I think I built it up myself. You know. So, but apart from that, I had a really good, happy childhood, exciting, getting up to lots of mischief, as you do. Mm-hmm. So I went from there to a karate school. So I thought, if I can learn this karate, I can sort this guy out. So I went to the karate school in a place called Bacup, which is a really interesting place. There's a lot of Irish people settled in this place called Bacup. It was the last train line to be built, and a lot of the navvies got laid off there. So there's friends of mine had Irish accents, had never been there, you know. And there was a big community there. How can I say? Supported the IRA, of course, because that's where they came from and that's their belief. And there's all the murals on the wall and everything. It's an incredible place. You'd only go there if you had a friend there, and we didn't have any friends from there because it was just a really rough place. But the first karate school I went to was in this place called Bacup. So I was so determined to do it. So as the bus pulled up, I got off the bus, ran to the community centre because I thought I was going to get battered by the young people there, and I probably was if I didn't run. There's a couple of us. And then it started getting worse then. So first night, there was an instructor there, and he delighted in beating you up, and he broke my ribs on the first night of my karate. So that didn't work out too well for me. So a bit later on in life, I started going to football matches, and I used to support Manchester City, which was my home team. And when I went to Rosendale, it wasn't the team to support, it was Burnley. You either supported Burnley or no one. So I started going watching Burnley, and I didn't want to, but I soon got the bug for it. And it became my team. I went all over the country watching them get beat, generally. And then got involved in football violence, which was a big kick for me, because after all those years of being uncertain about, you know, your physical attributes and, you know, psychologically being bullied. But the turning point, a big turning point in my life, I've had a few turning points, as we all have, but just before the football violence, probably about the same time, I started figuring out, hang on, I can fight. And I could fight. My dad used to teach us boxing when we were young. His dad was a boxer, my granddad. And he's one of the top boxers in the country. And then the war came, of course, so he couldn't do it. So he used to do prize fighting. And then he would sort people out in the local area. My granddad is a real tough bastard. And we used to go down to Salford and see him, and all of a sudden there'd be a knock on the door, and Ted would have to go out, sort somebody out, come back, obviously make a few quid. So my dad taught us boxing when we was young, and I didn't really like it. My brother was older, and I think he bust my nose, and you know, it wasn't a very pleasant experience for me. But all of a sudden, I found I could hit people, and it sounds weird that I look back on it now, and your life's your life, right?
Yeah.
And I just figured out I could hit people and I could beat them, and I enjoyed doing it. And then I went to this pub, probably within a month or a few weeks, and this bouncer in there was a right bully, a big guy. There's a few of them. And I'd done something. I was young and I was pissed. I maybe spilt something, and he came for me, and I thought, here we go. And I said, right, get outside now. I'm going to fuck you up. Why I said it, I have no idea, because I was shitting my pants. And so this guy came out the pub, and the whole pub, it's like a pub disco type thing. The whole pub emptied as well, because they wanted to watch this young lad get battered by this guy. Anyway, there's some like garages on a little bit of wasteland by this pub. And we started going for it, and I was just banging him. I mean, really hard. I hurt both my wrists. I hit him that hard. And I remember it to this day. And he couldn't hit me, and I could just hit him. Anyway, I beat him down. He's on his hands and knees crying. He says, don't hit me anymore, right? And I was like, wow. And everybody's like, wow. And then I saw this guy who used to bully me, and I went, you're fucking next, boy. And he went, no, Lee, I don't want any trouble. I don't want any trouble, please. And that was a big turning point for me, for my confidence, you know, as a young man. So then I got into the football violence, quite too much it was.
How so?
I think living for the day, living for the fight, you know, because it was prearranged, some of it wasn't. And I just didn't care, just did not care. And quite quickly, in the pecking order of football hooligans, as they called them then, I started going to the top. And then the local karate instructor from the same club, who lived across the estate, he had a chat with my dad. I remember my dad telling me, and he said, Terry, my dad, he's dead now, God bless him. I held his hand when he died. The most empowering thing I've ever done in my life. I just felt so at ease. It's incredible, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And this man, that we all loved, is a lovely guy, and it made me feel so at one with him. It's incredible, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
And everyone else was crying and all that. And I thought, wow, no, this is great. I get to do this with my dad. Mad, isn't it? So the karate instructor said to my dad, you better get your boys, because my older brother, he was into the football violence as well, but he wasn't as good as me. I was quite good at it, you know. And so he said, you better get them in the karate school before they end up in prison. And our local prison then was Strange Ways in Manchester, you know. And I knew a couple of the lads that had been in there. And again, even like today, if you go in prison for a stretch, your social standing goes up in these circles, of course, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. So I started...
a badge of honour, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is. And that's how it is on you know, some of these estates. So I went down to the karate school, and it was a big fighting karate school. All they did was fight. They were well known all over the UK. And I went down there, and pretty soon I got really good at it in a very short period of time. So I think they had 4 fighting teams, and the top team were all black belts, some of them international players. So pretty soon, within 6 months, I was on the team, on the A team. So when we used to go out to fight, there was 4 black belts and me, a white belt, and I used to go and win. And when I got into the sport, it turned me away from the football violence and fighting in the pubs. You know, every Friday night I couldn't go home without having a fight.
Why do you think that's because of the discipline at karate?
Yeah, it is. It is the discipline. Yeah, it's a discipline. And once you're in a combat sport, it fills you up. So you don't need to do it anywhere else. That's what I felt. And I remember this one time, there's this guy in the local area. I'll not say his name, but he was a real tough cookie. And something happened in the pub, and he was just a very violent guy. And I said to him, look, I'm not going to fight you in here. If you want to fight, we'll go out and fight outside because I want to come back in and finish my pints. And he's like, hang on. So we go outside and he's rearing to go. And I said, right, just back off me a minute. Took my watch off, took my shirt off, placed it down nice and neat. Bit of psychology going on here. And he said, what are you doing? I said, well, after me and you have fought, irrespective of who's won, I'm going to go with a nice clean shirt back in there and finish my pint. And he's looking at me like thinking, this guy's off his fucking head. And in the end he said, I don't want to fight. I don't want to fight you. I don't know why, but I don't want to fight you. So I said, are you done? And he said, yeah. I said, we're going to go back in the pub. You come near me, I'm going to, we're going to fight in the pub. I don't want that. I thought he was going to go in and blindside me or something. Anyway, a few days later, he killed a guy with a shotgun. This guy went to prison, and all the rest of it. So perhaps not the best guy to play this game with, but it worked. And then later, when he came out of prison, we kind of become friends, So, yeah.
Isn't that mad though, that you've been bullied? A lot of people have on the show have been bullied, end up turning gangsters, SAS,
Yeah.
boxing, UFC.
Yeah.
Stems from bullying. Even that guy, his ego's probably so dented with you that he
Yeah.
thought as if he maybe needed to prove something towards somebody else.
Yeah. And I think, James, in the cold light of day, and this has really served me well in the work I've done in the close protection industry, in the military and things like that, that when you're really calm in an incident and, when people get violent, violence grows, doesn't it? And all the signs of violence in somebody that, I'm trained to see, that's how we can spot people in a crowd who are about to do something. It's the signs they're leaking. And as animals, which we are, we get that on a very, very deep level. So, if you can overcome that and go into these situations not showing any signs whatsoever of anger, of anxiousness, of adrenaline, people don't get that. They're like, hang on, I'm doing this, you're supposed to do this, he's not doing it. I'm supposed to do this, he's supposed to do that, he's not doing it. And then in their brain, their subconscious starts going, hang on, there's something wrong here. This doesn't add up. And then they start questioning it. And then once they start questioning it, then you can bang them out if you want to.
Yeah, because I had friends like that. Like if there were any sign of danger or people irritating them in the pub, they used to get angry, loud, aggressive, and it was scary. And people used to think, fuck that, they're off their head.
Yeah.
But they couldn't fight.
No.
They could not fight. And like you say, if you're that camp, then in your mind, he's not reacting the way he should be reacting. So it throws off whatever they're thinking and balance. And I had many friends like that, and it's like acting. It's like they're acting a part, they're aggressive, they're angry, and they're thinking, but you can't fight. But it used to, 99% of the time, it scared the people off.
It does, yeah. And when you get somebody like that, and they're showing these signs of anger and aggression, and there's a book called The Chimp Paradox, Professor Steve Peters.
Yeah, I've read that.
Fantastic book. He was my son's psychologist for years on the Olympic team. And when he talks about the way your chimp works, your anger, your fight or flight and all the rest of it, once you can control that, and you've got to practice it like mad. Once you can control it, you get a person there who's showing signs of aggression or whatever. This is the thing. I know exactly what they're going to do because it's telling me. They haven't got a clue what I'm going to do. I have the power now. Even if I say, excuse me, I'm leaving, and I walk away, I have the power. I take it from them. It's mad, isn't it? And this will blow your mind, this, James, right? So we were in Tripoli during the Second War, and we had to take this really important person down to see one of the prime ministers. I think there was 3 then, and they were just knocking the shit out of each other. It was a horrible place to be. Lovely people, by the way, but a very, very dangerous, one of the most dangerous places in the world at the time. And we had to go into this hotel. So we had I think we had about 4 or 5 armoured vehicles with us, and I was a team leader. And so I'm looking at this. Every militia you could think of is in there, armed to the teeth. And there must have been maybe 200 militiamen from different factions. And it was very tense. And we had to do it. It was mission critical for this organisation. This guy got in there to see him. And it was against every protocol that we would ever, but we had to do it. So we were outside and we're about to deploy in as a team, a protection team. I said, right, I get on the air. I said, right, everybody take your weapons off. We're taking no weapons. And they're like, what? Are you fucking crazy? And I said, lads, if it kicks off in there, there'll be plenty of weapons lying around. We can pick them up. But I had a weapon. I took my Glock in with me in a like a really. I used to have this really fancy bag that looked that you would see in London, patent leather and everything. It was ridiculously not a tactical bag or anything, and I used to dress quite smartly, so people kind of didn't know who I was, you know. But why I did it, James, was this. We had our operators, all great operators. I thought, if anything happened in there, they will pull that weapon. Because it's how we work as human beings, isn't it? I said, and if they pull that one weapon, it'd be like taking a water pistol to a gunfight, because everybody else was so heavily armed, you know. So I thought, if I can get my team that don't have the option to pull the weapon, then they're not going to pull it. They'll find a different way to diffuse any kind of conflict, you know. And it worked really well. And then we were in there, and have you ever seen that film, 13 Hours in Benghazi?
No.
Watch the film. If you want to see what Libya was like at the time, watch that film. You'll love it. And once you've watched it, give me a call. You'll call me straight away, and you'll see what it was like. But there's a scene in there very similar to this. And what happened is they opened these gates and they let all these people in, you know, for publicity. But they could have been carrying, or it was just such a dangerous place. And we got out, and I had to debrief my team after, and I told them exactly why. And they kind of got it, you know, but that takes some balls to do that, man. Mm-hmm. So I think, you know, growing up on the estate really, really served me well in a you know, various ways. And then what did I do then?
What was, see, the adrenaline between the hooligan stuff and the karate stuff, is it totally night and day? Where did you get your bigger buzz?
I think the karate and then kickboxing.
Because you're one of the highest ranked, aren't you? 8th Dan, is that correct?
8th Dan, yeah. 8th Dan.
That's unbelievable.
It is. You know, I've spent a lot of my time. It's my hobby, it's my passion, it's our family business. You know, we run karate schools, professional karate schools. We have a lot of instructors. We have great students. But I think with the karate and the kickboxing, because there's rules, and you have to, like any martial art, any stand-up, any combat, there are rules. And the rules make it difficult to beat someone. And I think that gives you a bigger buzz, because you've got to really train hard for it. So that's a massive buzz when you stood in front of somebody and it's you and them. It's very animalistic, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But I think this is what really helped me, is that, say, for example, I was stood across from a karate fighter or kickboxing or taekwondo. I've done them all at international level. I'd look at them in the eye. One thing for sure is I trained harder than them. And 2 is, if I met you outside on the street, I would fucking kill you. And I knew it. And they knew it too. Psychological, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you think that's where you are as well, a psychological, like a chess player, like you taking your clothes off, hanging, like putting them neat, and it mentally fucks them? Like, where did you get that from?
I think I've always had it. You know,
tactically,
I've always had it. I looked after my brother in the pubs and that. You know, so I think it's in me to care. It might sound daft, to look after people. I've always had that gene in me. And I think because I've studied it so much, I've studied the psychology of violence massively, and I now own it. I get it. I own it. I can work with it. It doesn't intimidate me. It doesn't frighten me. You know, so, and I teach that.
Yeah. How long did it take you to own it? Obviously, when you're bullied and then you start learning how to fight, and then you start beating people up, start beating up your bulliers. Like, when did you learn to control that? Because obviously they've got the buzz for fighting, they've had that adrenaline, they've had the power, something you've never really had as a kid. Yeah. When did you learn to control that and understand that you were a man who can kill, basically, a man who can take life? When did you learn how to control and walk away unless you were tested? Was that years and years of practice?
Yeah, I think I got it pretty quickly with the martial arts, because this is the thing. I wanted to be the best in the world, That was my aim, you know, when I was a young man. And my instructor said to me, like, Lee, this is the score. If you get nicked doing this, you can't train. And that was a biggie for me then, because we used to have this karate licenses, you still do now. He says, I'll take that off you, and that's you done. And that was enough for me to say, right, I've got to stop this. And I sorted myself out almost overnight. Crazy, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And then I'd go into the pubs and stuff, and even in later life, going back to my local pub, which my nan and granddad used to run back in the day, and meet people, and everybody go, oh, that's him, that's that guy, that's that tough guy, you know. And I didn't like that, and I don't like it, but it just goes to show how your memory or the legacy lives on. It wasn't a legacy that I wanted as I got older. Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, it was the thought of losing my sport because I just wanted to be the best in the world, you know.
Yeah. So what did you do when you started moving through the ranks then? Did you just stay focused into karate and kickboxing?
Yeah, I focused on karate, and I was moving up, fighting some of the best people in the world and doing extremely well, you know. And then at 21, I went to South Africa. So I just got on a flight, went to South Africa. I had a wife then, Melanie, and we had one child. And I went over, got myself a job, got a place to stay, and then flew them over. And in South Africa, I went to this big karate school in Johannesburg. And there was I went to this school. I think it was called Jan Schmutz Academy or something like that. I can't remember. And it was massive, loads of black belts, maybe 30, 40 black belts. Never seen this training in one club. And they were good. Anyway, I waited patiently, and this guy, the head instructor, you could see I was waiting. Didn't know who I was. And he came over and spoke to me, and he said, yeah, well, I think you'll find it different here. The English are shit at karate. We're the best in the world. And he really gave me a dressing down. I'm like, you don't even know me. So I never went back. And I went to a taekwondo school, and then karate and taekwondo, like bitter enemies, you know. And within 6 months, I was on the national taekwondo team. You know, I just love fighting. I just love it. It really gives me a sense of peace. Weird, eh?
Quiet in your mind.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And life-threatening experiences are very similar, but a bit more intense. But it does quieten your mind, and going out to the pub on a Saturday night, the last thing you want to do is fight when you're doing it all week. So this is why, you know, we have hundreds of children training with us in our Sanson martial arts schools across the country. And I'm hoping and I'm praying that they find that in the karate as well, you know, and if it helps us create better human beings who can contribute to the community in a nice way through the medium of sport, that's our job done.
Yeah. So what did you do then? Married, kid? Were you just going to be involved in your karate, travel the world, fight around the world?
That was the plan. That was the plan. Then marriage and babies comes responsibility and cash at the time. Cash was short.
Not much money in karate or kickboxing, is there?
Though there is now. They didn't used to be, but now a lot of people make a good living out of it. You know, our instructors make a good living out of it. And we specifically look for young martial artists who maybe have been injured or gone on their martial arts journey, and they're great athletes, great teachers, but they don't know the business side of things. And I didn't. And I remember going to a big business meeting in Wales for the karate when I first opened my karate school here in 2000. Well, it's a kickboxing school then. I went into kickboxing. I was quite successful at that, as well as my son, you know, he's world champion. And I went down to this meeting, and there were top martial arts school owners from all over the world. And I was asked to teach a high-energy class, which I did. And then we went to the business meeting, and they're all sat around talking about business. I hadn't got a fucking clue what they were talking about. And now I'm the little boy in the room now. And Kate was with me, my wife Kate, who comes from a really big business family. Her dad got the Queen's Award for Export. She knows all about business. And I came out of that meeting, I said to Kate, never again am I going to look stupid like that. And I taught myself business, studied it for years, so I became a master at it, as much as I could be. So the martial arts now with these young kids, because of the internet and everything, we can centrally do all their marketing for them. We look after their students for them. We look after all the admin for them, so they can just get up and teach. And that's what martial arts guys want to do. And we've seen so many people up in martial arts schools who think, well, I'm going to earn a good living out of this, and they just fail. Because you've got to be a business person to run a business, haven't you?
Yeah,
so,
keep it afloat.
Yeah, so now we're really lucky that we've got a great team. I've got 20-odd instructors on my team here. And we have great admin support and everything. So we've just set a young lad up. He's just come off the British Taekwondo team, on the Olympic team. And for whatever reason, he had to leave. So we've set him up in Manchester, and he's having a great time teaching. He loves it. Mm-hmm. So he's a real good success story for us, you know. Yeah,
so if you're living the dream, bit of sun over in South Africa, world champion, karate, kickboxing, got your wife, got your kid, how did you end up involved in like military and close protection?
Yeah, it's interesting. My wife then, she didn't like South Africa. And she didn't really get it. So I had to come back home. So I came back home a couple of years later, and I didn't really have I had nothing. I was staying at friends of mine, Stephen and Karen, God bless them, I love those people. And so we were staying there with a little baby. And then we had a second baby, Janine. First one was Shemaine, then Janine came along. And I didn't really know what to do. But I know I didn't want to go back to the steel factory. I got an apprentice as a boilermaker, sheet metal worker. I worked in the steel factory for, that's what I was doing in South Africa. And I thought, right, I met a friend of mine in the pub, and he joined the military police. And I was chatting to him, and he was telling me how good it was. And I thought, I just get that. There's me wanting to join a policing agency, having been a bad boy, and I didn't have a lot of respect for the police because I didn't get what they did. And when you're in a community that everybody hates the police, then you go down that line, don't you? Mm-hmm. It's only, in later, as I joined the police, I understood that what the police do and what a difficult job they have to do, not only with the public, but with the restraints that are on them and all the rest of it. So I joined the military police. And I went down for my selection, and the officer there did not want me to join the military police. He wanted me to join the engineers because I was a tradesman. And I had a fit, and I fought to get in, and I joined the military police, and I had 10 of the best years of my life. Incredible, and I was so lucky that I did such a different range of things in the military police that just filled me up,
What's the difference, military police, normal police?
So the Royal Military Police is an army unit, and anybody listening to us who've been in the army, I bet they'll be going, they'll have their comments on it. But the military police are the army's police force.
Yeah, the MPs who come if people go AWOL and shit.
Yeah, they do all sorts of stuff, but essentially we don't have any powers to discipline anybody, really. What would happen is the commanding officer of a unit, say an infantry unit, if any of their people did anything to contravene military law or whatever, the military police guys would arrest them and question them and make up a file on that one particular case and give it to the commanding officer, and he deals with it. A lot of people think the military police deal with it. We don't. That's what would happen. If you went to court martial, if it was a serious offence, murder or something really big, then it'd go to like a court martial, which is like a court, but without a jury as such. They're just officers that would sit on this and deal out the punishment,
You must have been hated more than a normal police, though, like the military police, because a lot of boys in the army, they do go well with the fuck off and are in trouble. I know. But I wouldn't like you coming at my door. Did you go to people's door who went AWOL?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, mate. Well, yeah. So I worked. I did so many different roles in the military police. I didn't wear a uniform for about 3.5 years. So the absentees and deserters, as we called them, generally the unit would have an absentees and deserters facility there, and they'd pick them up like you say, young lads, people just had enough and they're desperate. So they pick them up and then they get processed either back into the military or into civilian life. So there's a procedure. Some of them went to prison, depending on what they've done. But I remember in Northern Ireland, I took over the absentees and deserters file there, which is like that thick, man. So I'm sat there thinking, why has nobody ever done anything with this? And they said, well, it's too fucking dangerous. And I went, I'm going to do this. And I nailed the lot, mate. And it was so exciting. Going into these really tough areas, and we call terrorist areas, where loyalist or... So either Protestant or Catholic. And I would go in and get these people out just to get the buzz. I did it for me. I didn't have to do it. It's the buzz that you get from doing that shit, man. So, I have done that, knocking on doors, and I've done all sorts of stuff, mate.
How were you treated from loyalists or like Catholics or Protestants? Were you an enemy for the IRA side, or were you just military police or just enemy for both?
Yeah, I think the British Army, you're not well liked from the Catholic side of things. And then it was pretty tense when I was there, 1991. And it was a dangerous place, one of the most dangerous places to serve. And I've spoken to a lot of people who've served in Iraq and Afghanistan and places like this, and they still say that was the most scariest place, depending on what they did, what job they did. But and then with the Protestants, they were obviously pro-military, but at the real top end of the hardcore loyalists, they were always thinking, what are you doing? What's going on here? Why, so they're always looking for people trying to infiltrate them, through our various special forces people. So there was a bit of untrust at some level, but, and I remember once, right, this is fucking mad. So we're in this pub, me and this guy, and he was kind of working a little bit undercover, and I was just wearing civilian clothes, hair a bit longer and all that kind of stuff. And there was three of us. So it was a real hardcore loyalist place in this real hardcore loyalist area. So we were just having a drink. And I go to the toilet and I come back and they're surrounded by a group of guys. And I look at them and they're shitting themselves. And I went back and they said to me, how you doing, father? I'm like, I'm all right. And I looked at my mates and they were asking me weird questions. I said, right, can we just stop this a minute? I said to my mates, what the fuck have you said? They said I was just taking up the fatherhood and it was my last night out. How ridiculous. Because we all had cover stories, you see. And I looked at the lads and I said, right, lads, this has got to stop. And they said, right, okay, boys, we know you're military. We know you're not normal military. You've got two options here. You try and leave, we'll fucking kill you. If you stay, you don't buy a drink all night. We know you're all right. Stayed there till about 3 a.m, got pissed. Yeah, crazy, eh?
Yeah.
Mad.
What did you do then after the military stuff?
So, after the military, there's various reasons why I left, but it just wasn't the right time for me. I was due to go back to Northern Ireland to work for this Special Forces unit, and then I was going through a divorce, so I couldn't go back. I think they said you have to wait 12 months or 18 months, because you obviously going through a divorce and stuff, you're obviously mentally unstable. Also, they thought I was, and I thought it was pretty cool. So I left, and I was determined not to go into security. So I got a couple of jobs. I just couldn't hold them down. You know the story, don't you? I just couldn't hold it down. So then somebody, I think they gave me a call or something, and said, look, Lee, on the Mohammed Al Fayed team, it's a big protection team, there's a guy called Paul Hanley-Greaves who I'd met before in the military. He said he's head of security, he's looking for guys. So I gave him a call, went down to London, got the job.
How hard was that to get the job? For obviously it's a big family, like must be a billionaire Al Fayed. But how was the interview for that job?
Well, it was Paul cut corners with me. So what you had to do then is you had to go down and have this interview with the head of security, and then you had to do all these tests to make sure you weren't got any diseases or anything like that. Everything was tested by the doctors, you know, so you weren't bringing, you know, because a lot of military people, because you've been all over the world, you know, you couldn't be carrying stuff. So you had the medical stuff to do. And then there was another interview, and then you had to do a handwriting test. I forget the name of it. You know, when you do the handwriting, somebody looks at it and tells if you're a psychopath or something like that, don't they? Have you seen it?
Yeah, I think you can draw a circle as well. If you draw the perfect circle, I think you're a psychopath.
Mate, I can draw circles. Can you?
I'm in good company.
Love it. Yeah. So I didn't do the handwriting test. Paul said, "Look, you don't need to do it. You can start next week." And one of the lads, this is so funny. I think he took it away with you, did the test and then sent it in, you know. So his handwriting was really bad. So he got his wife to do it. So when he came back in, he said, "We were a bit concerned, you're pregnant, mate."
Oh,
yes. And his wife was pregnant.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's mad, isn't it?
So they can find out things about you with writing?
With your handwriting. It's a dark art, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is mad.
So, like I say, a massive family, and who were you protecting then, the father or the son?
So you had the head of the family, Mohammed Al Fayed,
Yeah.
and his wife Henny, and they had their 4 kids: Camilla, Jasmine, Omar, and Kareem. Omar being the youngest. Who I was chatting to last week, actually, kept in touch. It's such a lovely story, this. He got in touch with me. I'll get back to that. He got in touch with me, I don't know, maybe a year ago. And he said, "Lee, I'd just like to thank you for, you know, you changed my life." How nice is that?
That's
He's
amazing.
only a young boy, same age as Damon. So each member of the family had their designated protection. And so when I went there, I worked in London, learning all the routes, all the secret passages and everything I needed to learn, you know, about the family. And then at that time, I think you spent about 3 weeks in their main residence in Mayfair, and you never got to meet Mr. Fayed for the first 2 weeks. Now, the first time you'd meet him is you'd open the lift door and he'd just look at you and walk past. And this was the vet. If he didn't like you, you're gone. Then the next thing, maybe 2 days later, you were allowed to speak to him. So he's letting you into, because, I mean, when you're working, I spent more time with their family than mine. So, you know, you get to see everything. And so, you know, can you imagine letting somebody into your family that's going to live with you? You know, it's a big, and I totally get it. So I worked in London for a little while, and then I got moved down to their home in Oxted. And then I worked a lot with the boys. And then I worked sometimes with the girls or with Mrs. Fayed. And then I went on to his team. So I looked after him then. And that was like it was, you got paid more money. It was a bit more credibility. You know, it's a great job. I loved the job. And then I was team leader for a little while. And just had the most amazing experience you could ever imagine. Private jets everywhere, helicopters, boats, the whole shooting match.
How many security was protecting that family?
Well, I mean, at different stages, we had different numbers, but it was a considerable team. It was a considerable setup at that time.
Yeah.
At any one time on the books, maybe 50.
50?
On the books, yeah. And we all worked around in rotation. But this is the thing, James, what people don't understand. I know you've read the book about close protection operators. Say, for example, in Northern Ireland, if we went out as a close protection team, or, you know, because I worked in witness protection for a little while, you might have 4 guys on the ground. You might have 150, 200 people around you in support of that, you know. So on the bigger close protection teams, you've got your surveillance people, your counter surveillance, your drivers. You've got your close protection team that work with with the VIP as such, and then you've got people around them. So there's layers of security, and then you've got people at the residences looking after them, so nobody gets in there and leaves things in there, cameras, bugs, whatever. So everywhere you go, you're trying to make it as sterile as possible, because there was massive threats against the family and him. He brought down the government with the Cash for Questions carry on, which I was involved with.
What was that?
And so what he did is he wanted his British passport, but they wouldn't give him the passport, because when he bought Harrods, there was a big legal case that went on with him and this guy called Tiny Rowlands, who tried to buy it. And what they were alleging is he bought it with somebody else's money, and it was the one of the Sultan of Oman, who he used to work with. So I think he had his gold credit card and bought it. But the Sultan went there and said, no, there's nothing going on here. His money's my money. I'm okay with this. This is fine. So I think at the end of that trial, he was found not guilty, but I think the upper classes put like the death wish on him and said, but it wasn't, he didn't do it like a gentleman. So he couldn't get his British passport. How crazy is that? And everything he used to do here, he was a very generous man. He did a lot for charity, but which he never told anybody, for children's hospitals and things like this, and for the older people in his town, hampers at Christmas and everything, but he never publicised it. And you're thinking, we need people like that in our country. And I just don't get it, in the UK. So, so what happened was he went to prominent politicians and said, look, can you ask these questions in the House of Parliament about my passport? And there's some money. Go and stay at my Ritz hotel free. So that's what he did. And in the end, they weren't asking the questions. So he said, right, okay, I'm going to show you fuckers. And he said, right, publicly, that person, I've done this, and there's the evidence. And he brought the government down. That's mad, isn't it?
So they took money expecting him not to just walk away.
No, but he's not that kind of guy.
He's always had a target on him for some reason. Even when in the newspapers always been negative about the man. How was he as an individual?
He was one of the most intelligent men I've ever seen. There's him, and this, people are going to freak at this, Alex Salmond. I worked with Alex during the referendum. What an incredibly intelligent guy he is. Irrespective of his policies and what he believes, just him as a human being, hyper intelligent, incredible. But Fayed was the same. His attention to detail, I've never seen anything. I've learned so much with him about attention to detail and stuff like that. And we walked through Harrods, the size of it, and we every day we'd walk the floor with him, maybe sometimes for an hour, sometimes for 10 minutes, but he'd always walk around his store, around the shop. And, he'd be walking past something and he'd be like, stop, get me the manager. And they would shit themselves. Out they come, and he'd go, look at that stand over there. And I remember one, it was with umbrellas, one was upside down. I'm thinking, how did you see that? In this massive store with everything going on in your life, with all your businesses, or he'd find a bit of dust somewhere. Mad, eh? He had all that, billionaire, and he was so invested into that store. It meant so much to him. It's incredible, eh?
How many hours a day did you used to have to work when you'd done close protection?
How many
hours a day?
Because we're all ex-military, we're generally in the close protection industry, in the area I work in, it's a lot of it, 99.9% ex-military. So you're used to working long hours, so you don't clock off, and it's given, So if I was to go on operation, you would stay till it's finished. I mean, the worst I've done, I think, is 3 days. I was standing up asleep because we were just knackered. We had a few hours sleep in 3 days. It was hideous. And you just, no matter how tough you are, no matter how trained you are, there's a breaking point, isn't there, when you sleep deprivation. And I remember on this one job, and the Queen came over to Northern Ireland, and she had her protection with her, and we were the next ring of protection looking after her. and I was absolutely hanging. And at the end of it, I was doing top cover in the Land Rovers. You stood at the top of the vehicles that we had then with the weapons. You see them in the war zones, don't you? So I was doing top cover, and I fell asleep in that position. There's nothing you could do. We were banging helmets. We were absolutely knackered. So operationally, you're not fit for purpose, But generally, with the fire team and other jobs I've done, sometimes you can put in an 18-hour day, because what you've got to do is, this is the thing a lot of people don't understand. So you've got to do your physical training yourself to keep keep on top of your game. So you've got to be mentally fit and physically fit. So say, for example, you knew the family were doing something, let's say 9 o'clock. So you'd be ready for 8, for example. And then you've got to prep everything. So that might be another hour. Then you've got to do your fizz, which would be another hour. Then you've got to shower, change. All of a sudden, so now you're getting up at 5 o'clock. And so they go out and do their own thing. Then, say, for example, you go back to the residence or wherever you are on a yacht or something, they'll go and have a sleep. Now you've got work to do then, prepping for what you're doing that evening. And then they might be out in the nightclub till 2, 3 in the morning, repeat. Repeat.
See when they're on yachts and stuff, like the food, I'd imagine the chefs and that, they're all have the background checks with everybody with the food, obviously, because you see the Russians, people are getting poisoned, this and that. Was that always a question marks for himself, like eating the right foods and the waters and everything? Was that all tested?
Well,
Or is that a bit extreme?
No, not at all. It is a concern, but what we had with the chefs, they'd been with the family for that many years. They were known to us, and a lot of his staff stayed with him for a long time. He used to pay the best wages, they expect the best, and that's what he got. So new people were vetted, of course, and then let into the fold slowly. So they might maybe work at Harrods for a couple of years, 3 years. So then you get to know them. Then they might come in and do something on a low level, and then once they're accepted by the family and they're trusted, and that's pretty standard stuff,
Was there ever any attempts of his life when you were working there?
Were there any attempts? How can I say? When you have a protection team as professional as that one, the people who are watching you, and we did find people watching us, doing surveillance on us from MI5, which was standard, and others. What you're hoping is they're going to look at your level of security, and they're going to go, "No, we can't get away with this. It's too much," and then put them onto somebody else. This is an interesting. I've always thought this. So, say for example in Glasgow, let's say on a Saturday night in Glasgow, there are, I'm going to make this up, 400 attacks against the person in Glasgow. Let's say for example there's 500 happen on a Saturday night. You can't change that. That will always happen. But you can make sure it's not you by taking precautions. So the people who didn't like him, and he had a lot of people who didn't like him, what you're doing when you're doing your close protection stuff is you're watching them watching you. And an attack starts, the principles of an attack are the same or very, very similar. So the first thing is going to happen is somebody's going to watch you. They've got to look at you. They've got to assess you. Sometimes it can be over a period of years. Sometimes it can be a minute. You're in a pub, somebody looks at you and you know something's going to kick off, or in a kebab shop or wherever. So they're identifying victims. And these people who are, just out for fighting or just that kind of violence, they're assessing all the time. Yes, no, yes. And they're picking out the victims, and then they'll go for one. And if you miss the stage where you're being victim selected, you're one rung up the ladder. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, if you don't know it's happening, the next thing that's going to happen is they're going to approach you. They've got to approach you to interact with you, okay? Now, if you're at that stage, you see the approach, you can diffuse it at that stage. If you miss the approach, now the next thing that's going to happen is there's going to be some kind of distraction generally, maybe verbal or something. Something's going to happen. And then comes the violence after that. Now, most people react to it when the violence is about to start. So say, for example, you're teaching self-defense. You grab me here, I grab you there. You hit me, I do this. That's bullshit. It's too late. So 99% of avoiding trouble as a close protection team is done before the person even gets there. Mm-hmm. And if you get that right, then you avoid attacks. So say, for example, out in Libya was a really good example. Our team, I've worked in several teams there, all Brits, very professional, great guys. And then you see some other countries doing or the United Nations or NATO, and you look at their close protection teams, and we would look at them and go, shit, they're going to get hit. And they did often get hit because the drills weren't good enough. They were real gung-ho. It's all about me, the bodyguard, look at me. And no one's watching what they're supposed to be doing. But when the terrorists or the criminality look at this, that's what they're looking for, because they want to get away with it. They don't want a hard target. They want something they know, we could do this and we can win. Same as street violence. You know, you're never going to pick on the hardest bastard that you think is going to kill you, you know, unless you're high on drugs or something. So if you harden yourself as an individual or as a close protection team, and you make it really hard for the terrorists to even go, nah, forget that one, we'll go for this one, and just push him on to another team. Yeah. Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. How was it? Was you in speaking terms a lot with Al Fayed, or was it just a case of do your job and go to bed?
Yeah. With the Fayed family, great relationships with the kids. Used to chat to his wife quite a lot. She hated security.
Oh.
I think it just interfered with her life.
Yeah, not private.
No, and her and her eldest daughter, they were really good at escaping from the security, and they go into shops, put a different jacket on, try and climb out the window. Not his wife wouldn't try and climb out the window, but she'd try and ditch security. And I remember I got put on to look after Jasmine, his eldest daughter, lovely girl, and she used to run the guys around like crazy. And if you lost her, you'd get sacked. As you would, wouldn't you? If you put somebody in charge of somebody you love and they lost them, then you'd just get rid of them. And that's what you'd do. So I said to Jasmine, look, Jasmine, this is the score. I love my job. I like working for the family. But if you're going to try and hide from me or get away from me, it's not going to work. I'll go home and I'll resign now. But if you and I can come to this arrangement that you're not going to do that to me, I'll cut you a bit more slack. I'll give you a bit more freedom, but you've got to be honest with me. And she went, yeah, okay, I'll do that.
Is that all they wanted? Just a wee bit of freedom, maybe hanging out with their friends, or go for ice cream without somebody watching over your shoulder?
I think so, yeah. But a lot of the bodyguards, I'm not saying a lot, it could be a lot, yeah. They're frightened to speak to the clients, as we call it. Or the person you're looking after, because it's, oh, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. This, you know, they're really formal. Well,
robots.
Yeah, and I get it, but a lot of them, they just want you to be like, we're chatting now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, I'm very professional. I do my job, as you know, but we're going to talk like human beings. I'm not subservient to you, although, you know, you call them ma'am or sir, whatever they want to be called. But, you know, you've just got to see through all the bullshit, man. It's crazy, isn't it? I know on one operation I was on in Libya, working for this big NGO, it was so dangerous. We were one of the last ones out during the Second War. All the embassies left, and we were, I think it was Brussels or Geneva was headquarters, and they wouldn't let us go with this one team of people I was working with. There was about 50 of them, and I was running the close protection team. We had about 35, 40 people in the protection team. And it got to the stage where it was that dangerous. And we had swimming pools in this compound we're in. And we had the security set up there, and then we had their set up. And we got some direct fire, AK and stuff into the compound. But the rockets that was landing and the mortars and that, the swimming pool would shake. And there's loads of peacocks in this place. And the peacocks, have you heard them when they go off? They're loud, man. Mm-hmm. Hundreds of them. when one came close, all the peacocks would start making the noise they make, and all the pools were shaking. So we're in this situation, right? And we can't get out. No boats. Airport's been the Battle of Tripoli Airport. They smashed it to pieces. I was in that. That was fucking horrendous. So we were trying to get out. So we went and tried to buy a boat, and I knew we were going to get ripped off. This is during the war. So I took some guys down there. They tried to buy this boat, and I knew we were going to get. Your spider senses start tingling. I thought they were going to just shoot us and take the money. So we bugged out of this place. It was like a big disused building, and that was a bit tense. So we go back, and this one guy, he was French, and he was a reporter, a journalist. So he came up with this plan to go to Al-Qaeda. We had ISIS pushing through. We had Al-Qaeda there, and we had the militias kicking the shit out of each other. So it was a free-for-all. So he said, look, we'll go to Al-Qaeda, make a deal with them. I can do this. This is what he's saying. And they'll look after us. This was the plan. He was a wannabe. He wanted to be like us. The close protection guys. He'd ask for a weapon and stuff, and we would never let him. He'd run round the camp like we used to do with a big Bergen on, a big back, but it was empty. We knew, you could tell it's empty. He's just crazy. He's some kind of wannabe flipping James Bond guy. So they went for this plan that they were going to do this, and they asked me, would I take my team in? So this plan's been okayed, and they said, right, Lee, come up and brief us. So when you did any big operations there, you briefed, the head guy and all these people. It was a big setup. And everyone put their 10 penneth in, and the head of the commission sat there, and my direct boss, he said, this is going to happen. Despite me saying this is fucking suicide, we're going to die. So they're all going to do it. And he said, right, Lee, tell me what your take on this operation is. And I stood up and I said, right, this is my take on this operation. This is fucking insane. This is going to get everybody killed, and I'm not sending my men in there. And everyone's like, shit, I don't believe you just said that. And he said, Lee, that's the most sensible thing I've heard all day. Everybody get out. And we had a chat, me and him.
Mm-hmm. How did it go?
It went really well, and we didn't do that operation, But it just sometimes having somebody will say, put it down to, you've got a big gob, you know that saying, or you've got a loud mouth. It's not. I'm just trying to be sensible when in utter chaos, So and that's generally, I generally get on with a lot of people, but sometimes you've just got to say it as it is, haven't you?
How was your relationship with Dodie?
So Dodie was. He was a quiet guy, and he would be around the family quite a lot, and I'd drive him sometimes, and he wasn't a very chatty guy, but he would talk to you, because he did a lot of films and stuff. He did Chariots of Fire, executive producer for that, so he had his busy social circle going on, a young man. Going around all the bars and nightclubs and all the rest of it. And then he had his business that he did. So I think he was a very thoughtful guy. So sometimes, he's on his phone a lot. So really, he wouldn't speak sometimes on a car journey. He'd just say hello or whatever. So, yeah. And again, when you get a person who's a little bit introverted like that, you just give them their own space, don't you? Mm-hmm. I wouldn't want to speak to him, but if he wanted to speak to me, I'd speak,
Yeah. So obviously you've got your team then. It's a pretty good job. You're loving it, paid well. When did you find out it was with Princess Diana? So
I'd been out to Saint-Tropez that year before for a couple of weeks with the family. And then when I came back, so generally we'd work 2 or 3 weeks on, 2 or 3 weeks off. So we'd only work 6 months of the year on that job. And it did sometimes, 7 months maybe. So I knew she was coming out before I went on back to Saint-Tropez.
Was that before it was in the press or the news or anything?
Yeah. So we knew she was, but she'd been seeing Dodie, the various teams we had in all the various locations, we'd get fed back, all the intelligence would come back to us. So when you went on to work, we had a book everything was recorded in. So when you went into work, you get the book and you just read through it, see where everybody was in the world, what they were doing, where the family were, because these families like the Fayeds, I could go into work on say a Monday morning, there may be no family there. I've gone to the airport with my kit for the Balearic Islands, and I've ended up in Gstaad with your hats and your shorts and all the rest of it. So you wouldn't even know where you were going to go sometimes, But the Fayed family was so generous, they buy you all new clothes and, whatever you needed. Very, very generous guy. So you go in, find out where all the family were, and then obviously there was intelligence coming back from our teams that Dodie and the princess, so we knew they were seeing each other, but I wasn't interested. I had other things to do, because there's a lot of pressure when you do that job. You've got to be on the ball. So when we knew she was going to Saint-Tropez, it wasn't a shock to us.
How was that then, that protecting a family, and then the most famous woman on the planet getting involved, who then never had any security? Because when she was left, the royal family, it took her security away. So did you just have to enhance security even more, or just be more aware?
Yeah, we enhanced security for that trip, and the princess came out with the boys, Harry and William, and they had a policeman each from the Royal Protection that came with them. Two great guys. And because it was that busy with the paparazzi, you have never seen anything like it in your life. And because it was such a fast-moving environment, sometimes the policeman would be going out with Mr. Fayed, or they could be going out with the kids. So we all just mixed in as one team, which was really cool for these guys. And the policeman said, what a professional outfit we were, So, and they'd been working in close protection for a while. And on the Fayed team, we had some of the top close protection people in the world, ex-SAS, ex-military police close protection lads, so we had some great experience there, and then we had ex-MI5 people working for us and all sorts of stuff. So it was a great team.
What was the first conversation you had with Diana?
Yeah, the first conversation I had with her, she was getting off the tender, the small boat that came from the super yacht, one of the super yachts, and she comes in, and the paparazzi didn't know we were there then. This is day one. So I just leant over and gave him my shoulder, because you don't want to put your hand out. Some people don't like touching you. The high net worth individuals, they don't even like touching you, So I just put my shoulder down for her to lean on if she needed to. She didn't. She just jumped straight out like a flipping dying. But she's a fit lady, and she said, "Oh, what, more heavies?" and smiled at me and laughed. And I introduced myself, and that's the first conversation I had. So when she said more heavies, she meant obviously more protection. Mm-hmm.
So how was it, as the holiday was going on, once the media and that started finding out where they were? Did that sort of give a lot of unrest as well, especially with cameras? Could potentially be guns behind that, or people trying to attack that? Was that always a concern?
Yeah. It's the princess then, she was the most well-known person in the world, without a shadow of a doubt. And she was doing all the demining stuff. She wanted to stop them doing landmines. So there was people that she was obviously upsetting there. So and various things, and high net worth people, stalkers. She had a lot of stalkers and stuff like that we knew about. We had pictures of them and things like this. So with the paparazzi, they were so aggressive. I think day 2 they started, and then there was 2 of them, and because we wouldn't let them into where they wanted to go on the beach, because the beaches in France, they're not private. So they wanted to go on the beach, and we wouldn't let them. And I think we upset them a little bit. One of my friends banged one out, because they had protection with them as well, some of them. He had a protection.
Why?
Because they're so aggressive in what they're doing. They know that people can get aggressive with the cameraman. So they call it backwatch. So some of them had their own protection. So a friend of mine, he banged out the protection guy, and we sent them on the way, and they said, right, we're going to tell everybody now. And they did. And there were hundreds and hundreds of them. Just, it was just insane. At one stage, I was looking, And there must have been, to our left, maybe 100, to our right, maybe the same. There must have been 50 boats just off the beach, this small beach, the fired beach. And there was even a helicopter going over. Because I think that then, some of the iconic pictures you see of the princess, there was one of me and her in a boat where she's whispering to me, that made it all over the world. Some of them sold for €1 million. So you can see why they were so aggressive to get in and get in your face and try and take a compromising photo, or airbrush it, which they did then. I don't know if they still do it now. You never know. Yeah. I would hazard a guess. But there's a famous one of her saying she's pregnant in this like a leopard type print. And we looked at it and we're going, that's not her. They altered the photograph and then made the story up.
Yeah, Frontline News, Diana's pregnant. It's going to sell all around the world.
Yeah, going to make them a lot of money.
Yeah, because see when she's like, does she have any agreement with the press to say, like, take photos there and then try and leave me alone? Or was it just a case of she had to surrender to what was around her?
Yeah, she did. And we would speak to the princess in the morning. She'd come down in the morning and I would chat to her on the beach. That was her, like, routine. And she said, look, this is what I'm going to do. This works. She said, I'll pose for photographs from them. We'll tell them they can get the photograph. I can manage it. They'll get the photograph and then they'll go. And their sort of like MO would be, once they got the photograph, they go into Saint-Tropez and they'd all get pissed. And then they'd turn up later in the morning. That's what they did. So some of the pictures you've seen of her sat on various things and just like reclining in the sunshine, they'd take the photographs and be like, look at her lapping it up. She loves all this, posing for the camera. Bastards, eh? Yeah. And she only did it so that they'd go and the children could go and play in the sea. So she couldn't do right for doing wrong. Can you imagine living in that life?
Yeah, and she was a phenomenal woman. Like you said, was it the Halo Trust? She changed with the landmines. Like she'd walking down the street with landmines to change it. Then she was going seeing the kids with AIDS. And
I know.
Like you say, a lot of these high-end people, they don't even touch you.
No.
Don't even like to stand close to you.
No.
Like, we're peasants.
Yeah.
The high-end people.
You're breathing my air.
Yeah,
go away. Yeah.
But was she just such a kind soul, as a lot of people say, like you say, the most famous woman on the planet probably to this day.
Yeah.
Like, was she as kind as she was when you seen a lot of TV?
Yeah, she was. You know, she'd speak to the chefs, the cleaners. She sent me a lovely letter after it's time, you know, that she wrote with her son's signatures on, thanking me for looking after her. And imagine how busy she was taking time to do that. That's amazing, isn't it? And when you met her, she was a special person. You know, when you meet somebody with that charisma, with that vibe, you know, and she was. And this is, we didn't have social media or anything then, of course. And the question is, why did everybody love her? Because people could see what she was like. And the media, especially the media in the UK, the tabloids then, just destroyed her. I just find it hard to believe that they could have wrote so many good things about her, but chose not to. Bad news sells in the UK, right?
Yeah. Did she ever read the articles herself?
I think she did. Yeah, there was one with a picture of her. I think it was the Sun newspaper or one of them. There was a picture of her and a picture of Camilla. So it was a beautiful picture of her and an awful picture of Camilla. How can you do that to people? And I think it said, Charles chooses her over her, that kind of thing. It was headlines, front page news. I saw it in the newspaper that morning and I was like, oh my God, what a bad position to put Camilla in, and Prince Charles and the princess, and they've got kids. Why would you do that? Sells papers, right? So I said to the princess, I said, have you seen the daily papers today? Because I wanted to just give her the heads up as to what was in. And she said, are you meaning that article in that paper? And I said, yeah. Like, are you okay with it? And she said, well, it's his choice. I just changed the conversation. Great. That says a lot about a person, that, doesn't it? And, you know, and seeing her play with her boys, what a great mother she was. delighting in playing with the boys. You could hear her hooting and hollering, and and she was a lovely, lovely woman.
Yeah. Do you not get your buzz felt though? Because did they not go dancing, Princess Diana and Doddy, and you were kind of making a dig at his dancing?
I know. When something comes out your mouth and you go, "You dick, why did you say that?" And she was known for dancing. She was a good dancer, and she danced with some of the top professional dancers. And she obviously liked dancing. Dodie, on the other hand, wasn't as gifted. He was gifted in many things, but dancing was perhaps something he needed to pay a bit more attention to. So I just made a glib comment, say something like, I can't remember now. What do you think about Dodie's dancing or something like that? And she said, Lee, I remember this. I didn't even understand what the word meant at the time. She said, Lee, don't make me terse with you. That was it. And looked me right in the eye, and I knew. Shut the fuck up, Lee.
Took it too far.
The bridge too far. When something comes out and you're thinking, because I would chat to her every day, you see. So, I apologised and give myself a slap.
Yeah. Because did her life, what year was this?
97.
So that was the same year she passed?
She passed a few weeks after that, yeah.
So, because she wrote a letter to, is it Paul Burrows in 96 and says that they were going to kill her in a car accident. Was she ever in fear of her life? Did you ever feel that
Yeah,
vibe?
she was, I spoke to Paul Burrell actually in London the other day, and he was telling me about that same letter. And he's got, his own things. I don't really read the news, or I don't follow media or anything like that. So, I don't follow the Princess Diana stuff. But, her friend Gianni Versace was killed. And everybody thought it was a planned hit. That looking at what happened in the security industry, that's what everybody thought had happened. It was a classic hit, but it turned out it was something slightly different. But I bumped into her on the top deck of the boat. I was going to look for the security cabin. We had an allocated security cabin on this massive boat, so that we could get changed and just hang out, if we went on the boat. And they changed the security cabin, and I was trying to find it. And I was on this big open deck, just all glass. And I walked in there, and I'm almost like as close as I am to you, to the princess, with her back to me, looking out over the harbour. And she turned around. She'd obviously been crying and a lot. And she said, "Have you heard about my friend?" And I said, "Yes. Yeah, we have. It's awful what's happened, And, I know you knew him, and I'm really sorry." And she was crying, and she said, "Do you think they're going to do that to me? Do you think?" And I kind of like say, "No, look at your team. We'll protect you." Trying to calm her down, and as she steps closer, anybody else, you just give them a hug, right? I think that's what she wanted, to feel that. But can you imagine if I'd have done that? The paparazzi got a snap of that. That would have been awful, wouldn't it? So all your human instincts wants to comfort somebody, but you can't. You've got to step back. And I had to step back and said, "Look, I've got to go now. I'm really sorry. If you need anything, just give me a call." And just walked out and shut the door.
Mm-hmm. See letters like that with her saying that she was fearful of her brakes getting cut and they were going to kill her next. Do you get briefed on that as well, or is that just something you hear through the media?
Well, at that time, we were aware of it. So you do your background when you work with somebody. You always do your background checks on them, and you profile them. So you would profile the person and look for anything like that. So you understand where they're coming from and what mindset they're in. Because if you're working with a client who is fearful of their life, they're going to be more happy to work with you on your recommendations. If you go and protect somebody who doesn't see the need for it, they're not going to want it. So it helps you pitch where your level of security will be, but also it helps you understand their mindset, what they're thinking, but also it helps you understand of what things they've encountered and what threats they feel are against them, and then you've got to try and work it all out and do a risk assessment on that,
Mm-hmm. Were they happy together with the kids, Harry and William? Could they enjoy it as a family?
Yeah.
Or was it so difficult because you've got security, you've got paparazzi, you've got all the negative press?
Yeah.
Could they enjoy being a family?
Yeah, they could, yeah. And with the fire security, because we were all, we'd worked for the family for a while, so you change your stance. So say, for example, we were operating in London, you'd be in a suit and a tie and all the rest of it. If we went on holiday, say to, I don't know, New York or wherever, so now you've got to blend in. So your security posture goes lower. It's still there, but nobody would know you're a security team. So you're almost like a surveillance security team. And you're watching them, and you're close, but you're dressing up to blend in. And when you do it right, and I've done this loads of times, and you're in a situation where it could be at a meal, it could be at a meeting, and people come up to you and say, and what do you do here? Are you a CEO of a company or something like that? Now you've got it right then, because you don't know that you're security, you don't stand out, which gives you an advantage,
Yeah. So how was Prince William and Harry? How were they both as kids?
Great kids.
Yeah?
Yeah. Harry, naughty little boy, mischievous boy, reminds me a lot of my son, Damon, when he was little. And William was like a more thoughtful boy, but we would sit for hours chatting with them on the boat when we tried to sail off to various beaches that we knew the paps couldn't follow us, and they would eventually catch us. But the boat would go out, we'd say we got an hour and a half here before they come, and then we'd move. So the boys would sit with all the security guys and chat to us because they were fascinated by the military at that young age. And everyone was telling stories, and they were telling us stories about stuff they'd done at school, which I would never repeat because some of them are quite funny. But so we were just chatting like you would chat with kids, and I get on with kids.
Yeah.
Because I've got 6 kids, so I love kids.
So at the end of the holiday, this is the last time you see Princess Diana. Did you ever have a feeling did you ever worry for her life when she was leaving? Or was it just good vibes, they had a good holiday, and it was just, I'll see you soon?
Yeah, it was good vibes. It was, because, at that time, we were, the security team, we were bolstering up the team in America. When Dodie went to America, where he lived in, in the Los Angeles area, he used an American security team. So one of our lads went over, and we thought, hang on, why is somebody going over then? And then they said, the head of security said, right, I want some volunteers. I think it was 4 people, 5 people, I can't remember now. I put my name down because I wanted to go, I've got a lot of family in the States. So we knew before then that something was happening. Then when the princess told me she was going to live there, it kind of made sense, why Mr. Fayed wanted a big security presence there. So obviously, possibly double up and look after the princess,
Yeah. So both of them are going to live in America?
Yeah.
And you were to go and protect them as well?
Yeah. Now, apparently, the house she looked at was Julie Andrews' old house. So although they weren't going to live in the same house or in the same area, so it just made sense. And it just looked like a young love affair to us, to me. When you see somebody for the first time just getting to know each other, I didn't think anything, now everybody's got their own opinion of it, of course. But for me, I generally say it as it is. They were just a young couple. He was obviously smitten by her, I would say. And for the first time in years, Dodie was like a different guy, smiling, happy. I thought, yeah, good on you. Good on you, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after that then, 31st August, I think, 1997, was that when they were in the Ritz?
Yes.
Before they jumped in the car?
Yeah.
Were you not there that night?
No. So when we left that one stint in Saint-Tropez, we knew Trevor Rhys-Jones, who was Dodie's bodyguard, he was going with Dodie and the princess on a med cruise, and another person had to go with them. Dodie will generally they just have one person with him because he's quite under the radar, Dodie. So nobody wanted to go because we were hanging, man. I was tired. I think I slept for about 2 days after that one. So we drew straws as to who would go. There was about 5 of us drawing straws, and one of the lads was on the boat. We'd isolated him there because he had the flu, so he didn't give it anyone. So one of the lads, he drew, he's an SAS lad, he drew the short straw, and he went, I guess that's Kez's then. And his name was Kez, the guy who had the flu. So he said, right, it's Kez that goes then. So we told him, he was pissed off. He didn't know what we'd done, but we said, yeah, you drew the short straw, mate. So I was thankful because I didn't want to go. I was absolutely hanging, tired. You know, we'd had a busy summer, a month of just really working hard.
Because probably one of the most, it's like the biggest death probably ever on the planet, because there's so much speculation, so many conspiracy theories, blood getting tampered with. Like, why wasn't there security behind the car? I think the driver as well, Henri Paul, is it?
Yeah.
Like, he worked with MI6 as well, is that?
There's so many things, you know, and I can only comment on what I saw and what I heard, but all these conspiracy theories, I think, because there's so many holes in it, and you know, so many things that went wrong. You know, that car that went in, they've never found a car, and there was motorbikes that went in that they, you know, the security cameras were off. It just leads for people to go, well, why? Why did that happen? Why did what's the problem with the blood? When they first searched his flat, they found 2 bottles of booze. Then when they searched it again a few days later, they had enough to stock a bar. Why did they miss it? Or did they? And I think actually, I was reading through the coroner's inquest. I gave evidence down there, and I think the policeman who was in control of the search said, yeah, I agree. It could have been put there after the first search. So even those small things are enough for people to just grab hold of them and go, right, well, if that's wrong, what about this? And they start looking then, don't they? But I don't think we're ever going to know what happened in that tunnel. I do say in the book, I believe the intelligence services were there. And why would they not be looking after, watching what was happening? I would be surprised if they weren't. Can you imagine? Right. Imagine this. So you're the head of the intelligence services, let's say in the UK, for example, and we're at a bit of a meeting, and you say to your heads of your department, right, so where's Princess Diana now, the mother of the heir to the throne? And they go, I haven't got a clue. It's not going to happen, is it? You know, it's so I think that alone that they denied, and my evidence about that was kind of not thrown out. It was the barrister tried to belittle what I was saying, and it didn't go too well for him, actually. But you know, I think when people look at it and go, right, well, the intelligence services had no idea what went on. The cars was never found. The security cameras were off. There was motorbike scene going in. There was this. There's quite easily you can start saying, hang on, what's gone on here? And I think that's what's happened, really. Mm-hmm. I believe it was a tragic accident, but I believe that there are people that knew what went on in that tunnel, and I don't think we'll ever know. And you know what, as well, you know, James, you know, our secret people, and they don't want to be, we don't want people to know what they do, because they look after us, they look after the country, they look after our safety, and they do an amazing job. So I get it that they can't say that they're in certain places, and I understand why, and thank God that they're there to look after us all. But I think it may have even been the French, but I do believe the people in there, and I believe it was the people on the motorbikes. That's just my gut feeling, because I'd stopped 2 guys in Saint-Tropez. So we're whizzing through Saint-Tropez. As I say whizzing, we're not speeding. Let's just let everybody understand that they see bodyguards whizzing around in cars and all the rest of it, and speed kills. And if you speed into an ambush, you go into an ambush quicker. So that's you know, that's for Hollywood. So we were driving down, and so we had a convoy of vehicles, and we'd sent a couple of cars out before, so the paparazzi didn't know, you know, they might have followed one and said they're not in that one, or they're not in that one, because all blacked out windows. So the convoy goes down and we go down this narrow road, just enough to get a car down, maybe 1.5 foot each side. And I was in the last car, my master plan. So we were in the back car, an armoured car. And as we got down this narrow road, we stopped our armoured, opened the doors. So even if they pushed against us, they'd push the doors back open on themselves onto the wall. They couldn't get past. Anyway, there's 2 guys came down on different motorbikes. The paparazzi were generally on mopeds and things like this. It's a couple of high-powered motorbikes, dressed in a way that ex-military would dress in. And they spoke to us in a way that ex-military would speak to us. Yeah, you're right, lads. Are you going to let us pass mucker? Which is a military term. And we said, lads, we can't do that. He said, yeah, we thought you'd say that. Anyway, cheers anyway, lads, and just drove off. No cameras, nothing. So my understanding of that was they were obviously watching the princes and the princess, and why wouldn't they be?
So MI5, MI6 were watching you as well.
Yeah, but I mean, you've got Harry and William. One of them is going to take over
As king.
As the monarch. Could you imagine just sending 2 policemen out into that shit show? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Imagine the prince saying, "Who's with my boys?" Well, we've got 2 policemen.
Mm-hmm. See, when they left the Ritz, why was there only like 1 bodyguard with them and none of them had seatbelts on? Was that always the case, not have seatbelts on in case you were under attack? It's quicker to leave, or should have had their seatbelts on as well?
They should have had the seatbelts on, yeah. And Trevor had his on. But
is that why he's the only one survived?
Yeah. It's I think that's Trevor can't remember anything about it. By the way, he's just lost his memory on that, and that must torment him. And I remember he said to me, Lee, when I carried him out of the golf buggy to see Dodie's grave, and he's my size, big guy, but he just lost so much weight. He was horrendously injured. And he says, this is the biggest thing that's happened in the world. He said, I was there and I can't remember anything of it. You could see it was disturbing him, it was very emotional. And because it's such a fast-moving environment, people say, sending the decoy car out, was really bad policy, but, and not having a backup car for when they moved. But you can only call the shots if you're there, right? And we did do one-vehicle moves. On occasion, for whatever reason. Because this is private security. This isn't police or military. So you've got to compromise, and you've got to compromise with the client as well, because they've got their needs. They pay the bills. So you don't know what happened, but Dodie didn't like wearing his seatbelt. He was known for it. He hated putting his seatbelt off, and he would kick off. And he did that with me once, the first time I drove him. And I said to him, look, so you put your seatbelt on, please. And he said, no, I don't wear my seatbelt. I said, I'm not starting the car till you do, and you're late for your dad. And he says, I'm not putting my seatbelt on. I said, right, okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call your father. You can explain to him. And he put his seatbelt on. Because Mr. Fayed, one of his big rules was everybody must wear a seatbelt. He was really big on it. And it's so tragic that it was that killed his son, something his father, if you were driving the kids without a seatbelt on, you get sacked.
Because his dad said, just stay here, and then they wanted to leave at such a late time, because their route changed as well. Yeah. Even going under that bridge, it shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Why was that route changed, do you know?
I don't know. It's one of those things, it's such a fast-moving environment, James, that unless you were there, everybody's got an opinion on it, everyone, but unless you were there at the time, Trevor can't remember. Kez has got his opinions on things, but had the crash not happened, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah.
So it was just an awful thing that happened.
Because when in the bridge, I think 7 of the paparazzi got to jail. They get charged.
Yeah.
And then they got released because the guy, the driver, is it Henry Paul? They then saying that he was drunk and then put the blame onto him, like you say, in the house. This is for the outsider, like you say, it's if you're MI5, they're going to cover up everything that nobody needs to know. But for the outsider who then blamed him and says he was drunk, and then they done the blood test and says, it was blood in his system, or there was pharmaceutical drugs, to then that getting overturned 11 years later or 10, whatever, and says that it wasn't drunk.
Yeah, I think with the bloods, I think the French weren't, I don't know, if you want to prove something about anything, you get enough experts, you've got deep enough pockets, you can change opinion. on anything. So there's that many experts there and all the rest of it. But I think the way the police handled that evidence gathering left a lot of questions to be answered, I think, by the way they did it. And without getting into it, I know the toxologist and, the carbon dioxide in his blood was a big issue. They said it came from the airbag. I just don't know. I'm not an expert in that. But what's interesting is at the end, because they took blood from different parts of his body and it absorbs quicker in different parts and dissipates quicker, they can kind of say, well, he had, I think it was twice the legal limit. So what's the legal limit then? I don't know. It's not my bag, this. Let's say it was a pint and we had two. We've had two pints, he had 4. So it wasn't, and you can see on the pictures he wasn't staggering drunk. He was but he was made out to be pissed out of his head. And Trevor said to me, and Kez has said to me as well, he was not drunk. We would not allow him to drive. Why would you? Why would you allow somebody pissed to drive? And they were both sober, by the way. Kez was a former police officer, Royal Marine Police guy, so he was used to dealing with drunks and stuff. And I think it was just a horrible accident that I think that our intelligence services or the French were there, and they should have been there. I wouldn't expect them not to have been there. And I think somebody's gone, shit, we can't be seen to be here. And I think that caused a catalogue of things which allowed the conspiracy theorists to jump on the bandwagon.
So you think they've had to cover that up because MI5 are going to be watching, like you say, it's the future king's mum, or it's Diana, and so they think they've been following you anyway. It's just happened, the paparazzis crashed into them.
Get out of here.
They've died, they've got out of there, but then the cover-ups with the speed camera wasn't working, the cameras were off, because it was a white Fiat, it was a paparazzi man, but there was marks on the side. But again, it's because I think the ambulance was like an hour, 2 hours to get Diana to the hospital, and that stopped twice.
I know.
So
when you put it all together,
it's a fucked up, isn't it?
It is. It's all fucked up, and people who are far more intelligent than me come up with these conspiracy theories. I just think it was an accident. I think it was an accident. I think we had people there at government level, whether it's MI6 or the French or whoever, that saw what happened and just had to bug out there quick.
Yeah, because I think it's Eric Patel as well. He was the only witness there, but they never used his evidence either. So there's a lot of question marks everywhere. But because I think as Al Fayed, he believes that his son was killed. Yes,
he does. Yeah, and he was. It tore him apart massively, and the whole family, and living through that. This is what people don't understand. That Dodi died, his son. The brothers of these children. So I went through that the whole thing with the family. And grief is grief, isn't it? And then the princess obviously died. It was such a sad time for her family. But it was interesting that she told me that she'd gone to the highest level in government and asked them to create a bill to get to calm this down. And she was told in no uncertain circumstances, no, we're not going to do it. And she said, I didn't cry in front of them. I waited till I got back in my car to cry.
Yeah, but was that not Tony Blair that never done that? She wanted to take away the paparazzi or get security, but Tony Blair signed it to say no. But yet he was speaking at a funeral.
I know.
That's fucked up, isn't it? Why did that happen?
When I saw that, I was like, this is fucked up.
Yeah.
But hey. And she said to her, well, if I take the paparazzi off you, they're going to come for me. How fucked up is that?
Who said that?
The princess.
But who said that to her? Tony Blair?
Yeah.
So he says, if I take the paparazzi on you, they'll come at me?
Yeah. My government. Fuck. Mate, she was so upset when she was telling me. And I don't have an opinion on Tony Blair. I don't have an opinion on the government. I can only say what I heard and what I saw. And that's it. But, and people are people, aren't they? At the highest level, people are normal people, and they're in it for their own agenda, what they can get out of it. Yeah. Mad, isn't it? Yeah. Fucking mad, mate.
Sad as well, man.
It's sad, yeah.
But there's just so much speculation around that, because there's still especially the 25th year anniversary of it, and there's still never been answers. But like you say, that hierarchy, higher power, you're never going to get the answers, and that's why all the speculation, because who says what's right or what's wrong? You don't really know, because there was never an inquest either. But should have been, is that not law, that if a British person passes away over abroad, then there should be an inquest if there's speculation around the death?
Yeah, there's so much. I've spoken to very, very senior policemen about this, and they have their opinions, and you know, I don't kind of trouble my mind with that. It's just like the JFK thing. Very same, isn't it? Very. I know that was, you know, he was shot. I get that, but I think when the criminal trial went on, and years later you had the coroner's inquest, two different things, but I think that set the precedence. That criminal trial that went ahead, and then when the coroner's inquest went on, I had two people from Scotland Yard here. They stayed here for 3 days, questioned me for 3 days, and they were great guys, by the way. And I think had that level of inquest had gone on at the first trial, various things might have unfolded differently.
Yeah, because
you'll never know.
The tunnel as well, they'd opened that up 4 hours after the crash.
Jet cleaned it, jet washed it.
And then you've got Prince Harry saying that he had to leave because he didn't want to end up like his mum.
Mad, eh?
Do you know what I mean? And it's sad, like, there's so much madness goes on, but again, it's for the human mind, it's still, you're intrigued by it. 25 years later, we're still talking about that.
I know.
What would your full rundown be on it all? In your own professional manner?
Yeah, I think it's an incident that happened, and they'll be talking after it long after we've gone. But I think some people make their living out of it, don't they? Out of Princess Diana and regurg. I mean, you get. I think that's why I've been on so many shows and this and all over the world, because people love the princess. They still do. If they can get her picture on the front of their magazine, it sells that magazine like crazy, or that newspaper. So she's still people, you know, the people's princess, and people just loved her. And people, you know, it's just crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, there was rumours that she was pregnant. Is there any?
We did a sweepstake to see if she was, because we looked and we were like, she's not pregnant, but you never know. So we did a bit of a sweepstake. Yeah. But no, we didn't. She didn't show any signs of being pregnant. But again, if a female was pregnant at a young stages or early stages, you wouldn't know.
Where did you hear the news that she had passed away?
So I'd got. Where had I been? I'd been somewhere. I'd gone back. I'd been. I think I was actually back in Saint-Tropez. Yeah, I was. I went back to Saint-Tropez for a couple of weeks, and it was like a walk in the park, man. Because it was just a family there. I was like, yes, this is brilliant. And I came back home. I think I slept for a couple of days, and then I had a barbecue at my house and invited all my family around. And on this one particular night, I started to clean up. It might be near midnight, of course, which I never do. I just go to bed, you know. And I don't know why I did it then. I had Sky News on, and I heard it on Sky News. And I went to my phone. I see I'd missed loads of calls, so I called the operations room, the ops room, and then I was getting a rundown, real time, of what was happening, you know, before it even hit the news, because I thought, I packed my bag and stuff, because I thought I was going to have to go back into work, you know, which I didn't have to do, actually, which was a blessing, really, because I think it was very upsetting for the guys there, going over to, you know, Paris and doing all that stuff. And I went back about 2 weeks later, when all the funerals and that was going on, all that kind of stuff. You know, it's incredible. The outpouring of grief was just insane.
Millions and millions of mourners.
Millions.
How was it for you? Did you ever feel like if you were there, you could have saved it from happening? As a guy who protects, like, you'd always feel as if you would protect the person you're with, but did you ever get sleepless nights that what if you were there?
No, I didn't, you know, because I just accepted the fact I wasn't there. You can only fix what you can fix, right? So I know some people have, but I certainly didn't.
Mm-hmm. So Trevor Rees-Jones, who's a friend of yours, he was only survivor in the crash.
Yeah.
How long after the crash did you get to see him?
So I he came out of hospital, and it was weeks later, and he came down to the family home, and Mr. Fayed had built like this beautiful thing, in memory of his son, and it's probably about half a mile from that actual house, but in the grounds, So I took Dodie, and we used to have a tennis, the tennis buggies, they use on the tennis courts. And that's tennis, what I'm saying, golf, what am I talking about? My head's flipping whizzing. Golf buggies. And I drove Trevor around, and, when you see somebody and you think, fucking hell, I don't know you. His face was fucked, man. And he must have lost 3-4 stone weight. So I kind of picked him out the car and held him to the thing. And he was just like, it was like a 90-year-old man. How much trauma he'd had. And that's when, when I spoke to Trevor, and he was very emotional, and so was I. But, yeah, I've seen him since. And, yeah, he's a great guy. Real professional guy. And if somebody was to say, look, somebody's going to look after your family, I would choose Trevor. Because he's such a good bloke,
How hard is that to see a brother suffer like that? Like, on the job, trying to protect people, but then the effects it has on the people who do protect.
It is. It's the more you see it, James, the more you're okay with it. A lot of my friends, quite a few of my friends have killed themselves, and when you're trying to help them through it, they're self-medicating with which we all have with various things, and it's so sad that really proud men's men, can crumble like that and kill themselves. How fucked up is that?
Yeah, sad, isn't it? Yeah, so after that, the death of Diana and Dodie, you're supposed to go to America, change your life, looking after the princess and her man. After that happens, then what's the steps for your life then? Did you totally transform it in a different lifestyle, or did you just stay close protection?
Yeah, that was one of the biggest changing points in my life. So what happened then was the family, they were in mourning. Some of the security guys left. Some got posted to different places. And I went back out to Saint-Tropez for a few months to look after the villa there. The guy who was looking after, I think his dad had died or something, and he had to go. So I volunteered to go there, and it was good, really. It was just a couple of months of just chilling out, really. So what the rich people of the world, in all their places all over the world, they'll generally have a security person there they can trust. Just keep an eye on it. So after that, there was a vacancy came in a village called Rolls Hall, which is near Lairg, in the middle of Scotland. It's in the middle of the country, this tiny little village. Because Mr. Fayed there, he's got his castle, and he's got all his hunting and fishing estates about another hour north of that. And the lad that was there, the security lad, he was moving somewhere, London or something. So I spoke to my mate Paul Hanley-Greaves, who gave me the job, and I knew he was leaving. And I said, Paul, send me there. I want to go there. But not only that, I wanted to get my boy Damon, because he was struggling with his mother. He was getting a bit out of control. She couldn't handle him. So I thought, right, if he can come with me, I can look after him and sort him out, square him away. And so he said, no, the boss won't let you do that. I said, he'll never know, will he? I've been out in Saint-Tropez now. I'm off his radar. Just send me there. And I badgered him. And in the end, he said, for fuck's sake, Lee, right, go. So I went there. My boy came to live with me. But Damon was probably about 11 then. And I was living there. Tom Selleck, the Magnum. I was at the Magnum of the Highlands, mate. Hunting, fishing. It was great. Just getting into the community. There's just one pub, a few houses, doing things in the community. And obviously keeping an eye out on his estate. And then we had a security team in the castle, which I didn't go to. And then, so I'm just living the life of Riley there, having a great time. And what happened then was I went down to the castle. I think the family were coming up to stay. We had a big meeting, like we always did. And I then, there were some members of the Guinness family coming in to come up to the estate where I lived, and the security team used to ferry VIPs about, but they were too busy preparing for the Fayed family coming. So I said, look, I'll do it. I'll do the trip. So I go down to pick the Guinness family up, and I met Kate there, who's now my wife, and the plane was delayed, and we got talking in the airport. It's a tiny airport in Inverness then, tiny little airport. We got chatting, and I got the Guinness team in, and one of the CEOs of one of his companies was there, Mark he was called, and I got them together, and I says, Mark, I says, I hope you don't feel like this is unprofessional. I says, see that lady over there? And he went, yeah. I said, I've just got to go and get her number. Is that okay? And he went, yes. He says, come on, go for it, son. So I got Kate's number, and then we met, and then we started seeing each other. Went to Ibiza, had a great time there, came back, and then Mr. Fayed visited. So he came up to Rose Hall, and he had a little shop there that he gave the village, rent-free, so they could have stuff there, and people could make some money. And I thought, shit, I've got to stay out of the way. So he was there, my cottage was opposite, and one of the boys came over and said, Lee, the boss wants to see you and your boy. I said, okay. We go over, he buys my boy everything in the shop, and he says to me, Lee, what are you doing here? And I said, I've been here for like 18 months. And he went, no, you come down to London and work with me and my family, the boys like you. And I said, I've got my boy here. He's in school. I said, no, I'll get your house. We'll put him to school. We'll sort all that out. And that was the change then, because I didn't want that for him. I didn't want him to grow up in that lifestyle. And I was happy there. And I just met Kate. So I left. the employment of the Fayed family then.
So was he going to put your kid through private school with his own sons in a big house in London? Did you see, though, your son struggling because the father figure wasn't around?
Yes. Yeah, that's why I brought him back, because he's a very strong-minded guy, Dem. And you see the stuff he's done in sport and that, at the highest level. He's one of these guys, he gets something in his brain, he's going to do it, man.
Same as yourself, though.
Sorry?
Same as yourself?
Yeah, pretty much. And we did that when he was 17, 18, big style. Because I didn't know what I know now, and we often talk about it. And bringing up boys, is difficult. And Kate, she did a lot of research about bringing up boys and the testosterone through those years. And once I began to understand it as a father, I sometimes think to myself, you fucked that right up, Lee. But you only know what you know, right? But now knowing what I do know with my boys now, my twins who are 11 and my boy who's 17, I can manage myself better and see to their needs rather than mine, so it was a great lesson. But Damon and I were like best friends, So
it was a tough decision, but not a tough decision because you had your family here. To leave the Al Fayed, because you've not worked with Tom Cruise in that as well.
Well, during the Fayed years and after, I've worked with quite a few celebrities, but because Dodie was into the film production, we'd have these people coming through all the time, and we'd look after them and take them about, and all that kind of stuff. And that scene, I just don't like. It's not my bag. Some of them are very needy, extremely needy.
Like who?
Lots and lots needed. But the best one, this is funny, Jean-Claude Van Damme, right? Fucking hell, mate. I've nothing against the guy. I think he's actually quite good fun. But I've looked after him a couple of times with Fayed when he came down. And he screwed the nut with us because we were like Fayed's bodyguard team. And most people shit themselves when they came into because we were so professional. And most of the guys were about my size, 6'2" or something. And all fit and with bearing, so we're quite a good team. And so he'd just sit quietly in the car, put his makeup on, do whatever. He had a big cocaine problem, which is a problem a lot of people have, and it's well documented. So I'm not kind of sort of saying stuff out of turn here. So people have got to have their own space, haven't they, to put the makeup on, to take the cocaine, to do what they've got to do, and you've got to work with them rather than put your opinions on them. That's why a lot of guys struggle in this, and they can't cope working with these people because they have opinions on their lives. And I say to my teams now, and I train teams all over the world now, and you know, I still work in security operations, but managing it now, that, you know, I say to people, how dare you have an opinion on anyone? We're here to keep them safe, not to have an opinion on their life, just make it right for them. So Van Damme was coming over to do a Fly on the Wall documentary, right? And there was a friend of mine that was running it, and he was going to various locations doing various stuff. And I got a call, and he said, Lee, I need your help. And I says, what do you need, John? He says, I need some close protection for the Van Damme documentary I'm doing. I said, okay, I can help you. When's he coming? And he says, day after tomorrow. And I went, shit, you got problems, mate. So I says, right, find me the itinerary, I'll see what it was. It was about a week. So I looked at the itinerary, and I said, right, mate, he's not going to get in that helicopter. It's only got one engine. He's not going to go there. He's not going to go there. He won't go there, and he won't do that. He said, well, he's got to. He's contracted to. I said, no, he's not, mate. He's a superstar. He'll do what the fuck he wants. I said, so you're going to have to take that out and take that out. And I said, it's going to be a bit of a nightmare for you. So he says, right, I need security. So I got one guy I knew, God bless him, a very good friend of mine, Rock. And if you're listening to this, Rock, I love you, man. So he's one of the hardest men I've ever met in my life. He's fucking nails. Great CP operator, not the best at organising, right? So I put him on the job. I put my friend Jack Morley, who's died, God bless him, ex-Scotland international rugby player. He played rugby for Scotland, cricket for Scotland, and he did kickboxing for Scotland. Great guy, huge monster of a man, very intelligent. He's done some great stuff in his life and in his career. So I put Jack down to look after Rock. I put Rock there to look after Van Damme, and I put a team around them. Okay, so the waiting at the airport in Birmingham for him to fly in. He's not on the flight. He's flown from Hong Kong. He's not on the flight. Rock's on this. We've lost. I said, you can't lose him. We've not even picked him up yet. Fucking find him in the airport. He says, he's not on the plane there. I've checked the itinerary. He's not there. I've been airside. He's not here. Like, shit. What are we going to do? Nobody could contact his PA because she was in the air flying on a different flight. So Rock stood outside the airport thinking, what the fuck are we going to do? All of a sudden, this car pulls up. Van Damme gets out, goes, cheers, mate. He'd hitched a lift. He'd gone to the wrong airport. His flight was to the wrong airport. He'd hitched a lift from London to Birmingham. Check that. How funny is that? So he gets out and the show goes on. And it's drama after drama because he wouldn't change the itinerary. So he's got to get a shower in between appearances, hasn't he? He's got to take his flipping cocaine. He's got to put his makeup. He's got to have time to do that. And in the end, they were in this big show in London, and he's just come from this event, and my mate's there, is about his size, and he's got these tux on and all the rest of it. Van Damme walks in, mad as bollocks, with his sweaty shirt on that he's just been doing some kind of martial arts demo, goes into this place and he throws the shirt at my mate. He says, give me the fucking tux. So he had to give him the tux, and he sat there at this dinner with a sweaty T-shirt on, a pair of joggers. Laughed my head off. But I think it was about 3 days in, Jack, my friend, he says, Lee, we've got a big situation down here. I says, what? He says, Van Damme's been an absolute dick. Rock's going to fucking kill him. He's going up to his room now to fucking smash him. I'm like, stop him now. We won't get paid. So I said, get him on the phone. I talked him down. He said, Lee, I'm going to fucking kill him. I said, no, you're not. I will not pay you if you fucking smash up the VIP. And I talked him down, thank God. Rock, thanks, mate.
Yeah, that's not good for business.
Fucking hell.
So what's life like now, like, working with the biggest names on the planet, like, been through a bit of trauma yourself, a bit of pain, from being bullied to being a native Dan? Like, it's an unbelievable career and stories, but how's life like now?
Yeah, life's really good. Life is really good. We've got our martial arts that we do. That's our passion. I've got various things going on in Somalia. We've got some stuff going on in Saudi. We've got some stuff. We're waiting for Mali to quiet down a bit. We've got some work there. I do organise close protection for VIPs, and I'm very choosy who I touch now. So they've got to fit my criteria as well as me fit in theirs. So I've got some great people I work with that look after people. I've got a close protection training school that we're just about to launch in Spain, which is super exciting. So we've got all that going on. And we do a lot of work with the community here. We work with challenged children. We work with kids who have opted out. You know, some of it we do for free. Some of it my team get paid for. So that's nice, looking after some of these kids. They've just been forgotten by the system. I could cry for them, you know. And you look at them and you think, fucking hell, what's happened to you? Mm-hmm. Where are you going to go? I know where they're going to go, some of these kids. And so it's really fulfilling working with them. You know, I think I'm going down to Birmingham to work with some kids who are in gangs. I love doing that because, you know, if you go in to see some of these kids as a tough guy, a kickboxer, bodyguard, all that, you can speak to them in a different way. Say, look, I've been where you have been. I went from school, didn't take my exams or anything. I took a couple of exams, walked away. I hardly went to school in the later years. And a lot of my friends, some of my friends off the council estate, you know, died of drugs and all the rest of that kind of stuff. So I know what it's about. So when you can talk to them like we're chatting now and say, look, guys, come here, there's a different way. There is a different way to do this. And I'll tell you my story. And if it just inspires some of them to go, you know, I'm big on affirmations. I write it in the book, you know, meditations and affirmations, and it can change your life. And for some of these kids, you know, there was one kid, and he was one of the last visits I did, and we'll do 6 at maximum, because some of these kids, they can't even speak to you. And, you know, they've all got issues. And one kid, he had this really deformed leg, and he had lots of issues. And I said to him, like, well, I'm going to show you how to do affirmations now, so you can be the best that you can be at whatever you want to be at. One kid wanted to be a joiner, but he knew he was shit. Everyone told him he was shit. He was thick. These kids are lost. So we started telling them, look, right, let's make a little life plan for you. Let's set some affirmations that you can say to yourself, because you are good, you are special. There's only one of you in the world, one of you, and you can be whatever you want to be. And this kid, they're always kind of saying what kind of jobs they want to do or what they'd like to do, or maybe go to college, but they haven't got they've got nothing. So this kid says, I want to get married. This kid's only 16, 15. And I said, well, what's the issue, mate? And he says, everyone told me nobody will marry me. Look at me. Look at the fucking state of me. Mad.
Yeah, it's sad, isn't it? Some kids' mindset.
Yeah. So I spent about, I don't know, half an hour with him, telling him all the good points he had, all the good stuff he had in his life. And you see, like, the cloud lifts. And this kid goes, I can't get married, can't I? I said, fucking right you can, mate. Now, what else do you want to do?
Try to grain a bit of belief into him.
Yeah, yeah.
Where can people buy your book, Lee?
So, you can buy it online, Amazon.
How was it writing the book?
It was interesting, and it took me back to dark places that I didn't really want to go back to, you know, because in the book there's 2 occasions when there's lots of occasions where it's been close, where I nearly died, and you make peace with yourself. And I know we were talking about it earlier. In those situations, the Somalia one was fucking horrendous, but the one in Libya just took it to a next level, one of them. And so we're standing to on the roof of this fucking place, and everyone's in their stand to positions because we think we're going to get attacked. And you're speaking to your mates that you've worked with closely, you know, I think it was 4 or 5 of us, and we knew that ISIS wanted to grab us and obviously behead us. Like, you know, it's normal format for them, isn't it? You know, put in the orange jumpsuit and fuck you up. And that would be your worst nightmare, wouldn't it? So we're talking to each other like we're talking rationally, right, guys? The guy who was in charge of the ammunition, the dick, didn't order enough ammunition. So we only had about 3 magazines each for our rifles, maybe 2 magazines for our pistols. Went to the armory and said, right, break out the ammunition. He says, that's it. You're like, you fucking arsehole. So we're on the roof deciding who was going to shoot who. with your last rounds. But not in a frightened way, in a real cool, clear way. Because in those situations, you know, you're worrying about yourself, your ego, your bills, your this. There you're worried about nothing. Everything is clear. The clarity of mind is insane. You've said goodbye to everybody, yourself. Yeah, obviously, I didn't say it to Kate or phone anybody up, but you've made your peace. You've left your video. You've done all that. Now I can get on with this shit. Now I can start working. And it's that feeling of clarity is very similar to combat sport times by about 1 million. And once you've felt it a couple of times, it's a comfortable place to be in. That's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Crazy.
So see, if you're under attack and you know you're going to a war zone, do you have to do a video before for your family to say you love them?
I don't, but what I do is when I go away, I always do a journal. So I'll either do a video journal or I'll do a journal, and I write my stuff in there. And one day I'll sit and watch them with Kate. But what you do on some of a lot of the jobs is you do a proof of life thing. So I write down everything about my life, and Kate writes as well. You know, the different things that we know, only she knows that I know, and we'll have our things that if they have to prove I'm alive, they will come to Kate and go through my proof of life, and they'll ask questions to establish if I'm alive. So imagine Kate going through that. Just that alone is nails, isn't it?
Yeah, it's madness. Just before we finish up, brother, for anybody, I know you're big on mental health and that. I know you've lost friends through mental health. I know you've battled yourself sometimes with mental health. For anybody that's maybe struggling themselves, what advice would you have for them?
It's tough. It's tough, James. You know, the government says there's help out there. There's not enough. But it's a start. It is a start. Now, people with mental health issues, this is what I would say to a lot of people is, look, you can turn this shit around. There's books out there you can buy, and it might sound a bit crap, but you can take ownership of it. You can go in search of things, read about inspirational people who've been in the same situation as you. Look how they've done it, and be proactive. You don't have to lie back and say the government's shit, they're not helping me. Well, yeah, okay, we get that. Now, what are you going to do about it as a person? Come on, fucking get out there. As dark as it may seem, just try one thing and see, because there's not a lot of help out there. People are lost, aren't they? When you're down that dark place where you don't give a fuck whether you die or not, you just really don't care, and you can't get out of it, and you want to get out of it, but you know what's happening, and you just go down that fucking tunnel, right? And it's got to be at some stage you've got to go, fucking stop. Let me get something positive in my life now, whether it's a video, whether it's a song, whether it's something, and just start that proactive thing of you standing up there and going, you know what, I can fucking beat this shit.
Yeah, that's the name. Lee, for coming on the day, brother, I thoroughly enjoyed that. I'll leave the link in the description for your book as well. But great story, mate. I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Great seeing you.